We're going to be talking about why branding is important for your church. Why should you even pay attention to it? We're also going to take a look at some examples of what branding looks like for a couple different churches. Then we're going to take a look at what creates a logo. Like, what is a logo really made up of, and how can you get a great logo for your church? And finally, we're going to take a look at brand execution. What does that look like to execute brand really well in your church? So let's start by unpacking what is a brand. And what you need to understand is brand is all about perception. It's how people perceive your church. Advertising is what you say about you. It's about your message. Marketing is the experience that people have. But branding is what people say about you. So it's the perception that people have. And really, that's what matters. You might have an amazing vision, a compelling dream that you want for your church and for your community. But if people don't see you that way, then your brand does not match your vision. You have to be intentional. And really, that's the point of this whole thing. I want to help you to be intentional. So your brand, what people say about you, is in line with the vision that God has given you. Because I think that's worth it. So here's what you need to know. Whenever you're designing a brand, you have to start with your audience. Let me show you a couple of examples. This is Life Mission Church. Life Mission needed to go through a rebrand. The community was confused. They were Life Church, and there was other Life churches in the area. And they just needed to differentiate so that the community wasn't confused. So in order to serve the community well, Life Church decided to change their name to Life Mission Church. And this was a large church. I mean, over 2,000 people on a weekend. They had a great thing going. And but they needed to make this shift. So we helped them through this process. And what we did was we helped them really lean into more of who they were. The pastor and the leadership were very big on missions work. In fact, the church takes over 8, 9, 10, 11 trips a year to foreign missions. They take teams of people from the church across the globe each and every year. They support dozens of missionaries, and it's just part of their DNA, who they are. They really go. They take it to heart to love God by loving others, and they go globally across the world. So they also have a local component where they do serve the community, but they're always looking to go outwards and go beyond the walls. So this logo is really meant to represent that. We gave them a combination mark, which it has a mark. You see kind of that globe with the arrows going out into the globe. And then we also have the words that are next to it. So you can use this mark by itself, or you can use it in combination with the words together, and they work really well. So it gives them a lot of flexibility to do it that way. Let's take a look at Grove. Grove Church is a church that's in the New York City area. In fact, just outside of Manhattan. They realized that they weren't reaching their community as much as they used to. There was a changing community. A young family dynamic began to happen in that community. So they reached out to us to say, hey, how can we get a new brand that helps us to really connect with this young professional demographic that's surrounding our church all of a sudden. So we helped them rebrand this. It's a Bible-centered church. When you go to the church there, they're going to take you through a discipleship process. It's very community-focused. The church goes out into the community. So we wanted to design a logo that represents that. You'll see that the mark has multiple pieces that are coming together to form kind of a square in the middle. Just the idea of community or block or neighborhood is built into that. It's got these leaf elements to it, just speaking towards that growth or discipleship mentality. There's a cross right in the middle, which is speaking towards, hey, it's about the Bible, it's about Jesus. That's what they put out there. And so that's what we wanted to represent with this design. The font is very simple and elegant. The church has been around for about a century, and we just didn't want to abandon the past. We wanted to honor the past, but also move them towards the future and where they wanted to go as they reach out to this new dynamic that's surrounding the church, the location of the church. So your branding is going to start with your audience. You need to know who you're really good at reaching. And for a lot of churches, this is a struggle because we're supposed to reach everyone. As a Christian, with the Great Commission, we're supposed to go. But what we have to realize is that we're gifted at reaching certain types of people. And the more we embrace that with our marketing, the better and more effective we are in reaching our community. So Paul went to the Gentiles and Peter stayed with the Jews in the New Testament. In the same way, like some churches are going to be better at going over here and some churches are going to be better at staying here. That's why there's multiple churches in our community. So we want to help you determine like where you're good at. And honestly, you already know this. The style of music that you have, the type of dress that you already have in your congregation, you're already doing this. We just want to put some intentionality behind that. So we want to list out with your audience what are some problems that they have. Let's say you want to reach young families, and we just want to think about what are some of the problems that they face as a young family, as a young mom, as a young dad, and let's just figure out what those things are, so we can put a message behind that that's going to appeal to them. What are some values that they have? Again, if it's a young family, they're going to probably value kids ministry, so or maybe teenage ministry. So let's just make sure that we put that on our stuff as we promote the church. So if you're targeting a certain type of person, it's going to help your marketing be focused. And focus is attractive. So it starts with your audience. You need to figure out who they are and then build everything towards that. Then you need to put together a strategy. So what is the journey that you have for the people that show up at your front door? What's the end result? And what are the steps that are going to help them get there? Let's put that stuff in place so that we have a good understanding of what the process is. And once we have that, then we can start to design your logo and the branding that supports it. So branding is going to be, in this context, it's going to be your colors, your fonts, your personality, your strategy. We're going to document all this. What does your graphic treatment look like that's going to appeal to that audience? Let's put it all into a document and make sure that we understand what it is. Now with your logo, as you're designing a logo, you need to keep in mind there are a few different types of logos that you can design. And the types of logos are important because if you understand there's 5 different types, then you can help to go in the right direction that's going to fit your audience. So the first type is a symbol. If you think about Apple or Mercedes, those are symbols that are just representing the whole company. There's a word mark, kind of like Facebook or Disney. They just use a font that is their logo. Well, there's letter marks. So Hewlett Packard or HP or GE, those are great examples of word marks. Combination marks, Sprint or Adidas are good examples of that. This is what we've found works a lot of times for churches, is to use a combination mark because then you have some options. An emblem is another type of logo, or sometimes known as a badge. So the NFL or Harley Davidson is a good example of what an emblem or a badge logo looks like. So if you know these types of logos, then you can help to point your designer in the right direction. Or if you're the designer, you can help go in the right direction to know what's going to work best for your church. Then what we like to do is design a grid with all the values of the church included, plus all the values of the target audience included, and then any notes that the designer needs. So just create a grid and then also include samples of logos that you like. Samples of logos that your top 5 logos. In fact, when we do this process, we send out dozens of logos to our churches and we just say, hey, out of these logos, can you choose your top 5? And then tell us why you like these logos. And they might tell us things like, I like this color, or I like this font, or I like the fact that this is a simple logo, or I like this mark because it's expressive. Whatever it is, that gives us a really good feel of what resonates with the church leadership. Because honestly, they're the shepherds of those people, and we need to take into consideration what you as a church leader want. So we definitely want to do that, and this grid allows us to do that. But we also want to make sure that we're aiming towards your audience. Really, that's what great brands do. They lean more towards the audience and their personal preferences. And that's a really important distinction. So we design brands based on the audience first and their needs and what's going to appeal to them. So this document gives us both perspectives, and then we point the design to go in the direction of that feedback. And that's how we get a really great design every single time. It's the perfect logo really for the church, because it's built in to the design. Everything's built in that needs to be built into the design. So then you need a brand document, a document that just puts everything in writing. Here's the colors, the fonts, the graphic treatments, also a personality, a strategy. It just puts it all together into one place so that your execution is consistent and cohesive across all different media. Your website, your lobby, everything needs to work together. The brochure you hand out, the bulletins, the signs in your facility, everything needs to work together. That's what makes people feel, it makes people feel comfortable. They get a sense of comfort and calm, and they build trust when you can develop that cohesive feel between everything in your brand. Everything should have the same font. It sounds very basic, and it sounds like it wouldn't matter, but it really does. So that's what branding is. So let's get this right for your church. I want to encourage you to be strategic. If you have a great vision and you want people to perceive that vision and perceive your church the correct way according to the vision that God has given you, then you have to be intentional, and that's why you need to think about your brand.